Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Stat Check. This is episode 57, Wake Me Up When September Ends, or as the cowards in accounting wouldn't let me call it, Boulevard of Broken Lists. I'm very upset that that was not an option that was allowed. I'm going to very quickly drop over to YouTube so I can grab the stream link to this and show it in Discord, because otherwise people will shout at me for not posting it in Discord. Hi, Menace. I'm joined by Nathan and Nathan's cat, as everybody can very clearly see here. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening today on the 22nd of August during approximately week 803 of Eldar Helmeta. Yeah. Hope everybody's having a good day. Jeremy may be joining us at some point during the show. He is unfortunately having some car troubles at the moment, so we will find out if he is going to be joining us when we find him. I'm currently typing in Discord because I need to add people.
Yep. Yeah, I've decided to, as Chad has no doubt noticed, decided to have the emotional support cat cam. So this is the cat. She's going to be with us until she decides not to be, and then I'll change.
I could probably get Fergus to come and like sit at the door entrance bit here, but I'm not going to do that because he's got a sore paw, and I don't want to make him suffer. I'd have to also sit like at a really weird angle to still be able to like speak into the microphone, like over here somewhere, and that's just not happening. At any rate,
she's literally just going to sit here the whole time.
That's good. So, unfortunately, Anthony will not be with us this week. He has only just got back from Iceland yesterday. So his WC recap and his other news and such like that will have to wait until he's back, hopefully next week. Otherwise, it is just the two of us and potentially Jeremy for this week. So we're going to be doing the usual standard rundown for the show. We're going to go through a little bit about how we've both been, what we're up to, if any upcoming events. I've got a few coming up, so I'll do some talking on that. Then we're going to go into the stats, where we have some fun ones for you this week, boys. It's grim out there. Then we're going to go into a bit of general meta discussion, and then we're going to roll into the show questions and hopefully some questions from the chat. So if you put a question in the chat last week and we didn't get around to it, please do chuck it in there. We will do our best to get through to them all. We should have time for that. We're going to try and keep it to the tight 90 this week, as we tried and completely failed to last week, because it turns out everybody was very eager to speak a ton about the WTC. No surprises there.
I mean, a close second to this title was like 350 days until next WTC. So,
yes, that would have been a very good. I approved of that one. I suppose we do have one minor announcement as well. Enter the Matrix is moving to a bi-weekly show. That's the biggest news that we have as far as the stat check front goes, where we are bringing on Nathan Roberts as a main member of the cast now. He'll be doing that with Typhus every 2 weeks. I believe that's going to be on Wednesdays, and it'll be probably doing the every other week that XM1 isn't. But as anybody who is a regular XM1 listener knows, that show's about as regular in terms of scheduling as Anthony's appearance on this show. So
I mean, he'll be back. WTC is a weird time, right?
Oh, I'm just winding Anthony up. So that will be those two shows will be now rolling on bi-weekly basis on the show on the network. So do look forward to Typhus and Nathan doing a whole bunch of that.
Yep.
Cool.
That's never going to not be confusing, by the way. I love Nathan is a lovely individual, and I was very happy, and so was Typhus, to work with him on WTC. So it was I was very excited that he was joining our regular cast, because now it's 20% Nathan's in the stat check backstage, which is never not going to be confusing.
It's 25%, right? 2 of 8.
Oh, it is 25%. You're right. I can't count. I've given up.
Look, man, you're good at stats, not math. Those are different things, I think.
It's actually true. They are very different things. Also, that is my hand that is next to the cat, Chris Irvine.
Prove it.
I can't. You're right. Not without completely making the cat leave. We're gonna have Cat here until Cat decides to leave. I guess do we want to talk about our weeks?
How about let's do that. That's probably the easiest place to start. I have been taking a slight break from jamming a ton of 40k, prepping for a couple of upcoming tournaments. So I have Las Vegas Open this weekend, and then the event that I'm running, which I'll plug later on because I want to chill. And if there's any Scottish people who've not bought tickets for that yet, come along. So I'll chill that later. So I took a break. I did a couple practice games with the Tyranny Codex because I just wanted to have a square go with it, and mostly been just catching up on work and life and all that sort of thing. Prepping some Thousand Suns for my event this weekend because I decided to YOLO Kairos and Magnus because that seemed fun. So yeah, it's not been super busy on my end. I've been doing a little bit of painting. I spent like 2 hours yesterday clipping bolters off of Rubric Marines to stick flamers onto them, and scraping for bits to make like Chaos Space Marines with rubric heads that had like the Horus Heresy chain cannons to use as Soul Reapers and things like that. So it's been a fun couple of days. I was going to take Tyranids, and then I realized that I would have to take like 6 monsters, and I just can't be bothered. So
it is a lot of monsters.
it was like 2 Tyrannifex, a Neurotyrant, like 5 Barb Gaunts, and then I was like, I just don't, and then like a Trigon as well. I'm like, and an Exocrine. I just don't feel like doing this. I'm gonna like paint 7. I'm gonna paint like 20 Space Marine dudes instead, and take like a third of the time.
I mean, it makes more sense. Just paint fewer models.
It's still good in the Codex. There you go.
Yeah. I got roped into an RTT potentially on Sunday this week, a Sunday RTT, which is something I've never had here locally. They are usually just Saturday RTTs, but I have like no competitive 10th edition armies. So I was looking at a Tyranids list and I was like, I would have to paint so many monsters to do this. I have a lot of it painted. I just don't have 2 Tyrannifexes painted or a Neurotyrant because it's assembled and sitting on a table.
You don't technically need any of those. Like, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I could probably run it.
If you got like 3 Exocrines, 3 Maleceptors, like you're fine. But
I definitely don't. I don't have 3 Maleceptors or 3 Exocrines painted. I was just gonna take Sean Naden's. I was gonna take Sean Naden's teams list because it's a fucking RTT, and I have 90% of it painted.
So what are you like? What are you even like playing for Knights for 10th edition right now for physical games?
I am not playing a lot of physical 40k at the moment. I've been thinking about playing some Thousand Suns because teleporting around and wielding Magnus sounds kind of exciting, and it feels a little bit less brain dead than running Eldar, which has been a really fun hobby project, but not a particularly fun or engaging gaming experience. One of the better things about WTC and playing Deathwatch is at least it was engaging. Like I needed to make decisions rather than just put Wraith Knight out of building, Phantasm back behind building, put Wraith Knight out of building, Overwatch, make some 6s happen, destroy 20 neophytes in Overwatch. Some of that stuff
sounds like you've been speaking to Brian. Yep.
Yep. One of my locals is trying to get me to bring Eldar, so I might do that to this RTT just to be a total jerk to some people locally for no reason whatsoever, which I guess is just my reputation, is being a very nice person and being terrible at the same time to people locally.
Yeah. So how buff did your Wraith Knight in Crusade, Nathan?
I haven't played any Crusade in 10th edition yet, buddy. But I could. I mean, that Wraith Knight would be terrible. And terrifying, I suppose. I
don't even know how Crusade works this edition, I'm not going to lie.
I don't either, actually. I think it has like skill trees now for different things and stuff like that, like an RPG, more RPG-ish elements, but that was from taking like a 10-second glance at the Crusade supplement. Beyond that, I don't know. Yeah, I have a GT in September that I'm going to and probably should prep for. Maybe I'll bring Thousand Suns to that. Maybe I'll bring Grey Knights to that and just cheese my life away.
I mean, Nitz Codex it might be out by then. We're due it in like ostensibly autumn, right? So
it's true. I mean, if it delivers before the 16th of September, I'll bring Tyranids most likely because honestly, I'd prefer to play Bugs versus other stuff. I'd prefer even more to play Drukhari, but Drukhari in a terrible spot. And I'm not Scary, so I can't make Drukhari somehow work and get podium placings with it.
He's doing it in Canada. Does it really count?
Fair.
Love you, Canada.
We do. You're the nicest. Well, not according to the WTC. That's the Norwegians and the Northern Irish, but you're the kindest in our hearts. I guess we could talk about stats and make everybody sad now.
Yeah, I suppose.
The reason why Emotional Support Cat is here is because I'm going to talk about some Eldar stats. I'm going to talk about some funny, notable things that me and Innes came up with right before the show.
We were just talking about hell stats, and a few came up that seemed hellish.
Yep. So we'll start with this week's stats, and then we'll do some overview stats, and then I'm going to talk to you guys about what I hope is a silver lining of this, is that hopefully GW does something soon to fix things. Been hearing lots of rumblings about patches coming soon, so hopefully that's true.
Well, I mean, the Meta Watch said second week in September. It's usually on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, so we should be due it like
the 14th
within
or something like that.
2 weeks, yeah. 2 weeks and 2 days, so like 16 days away.
Excellent. It'll slide in right before my rules cut off, which will be amusing for that
And
GT.
right before LGT rules cut off.
Ooh, extra spicy. I kind of like that, actually.
Yeah, me too. I like the idea of not playing this meta at the event I'm spending a ton of money to go to. Like, I already did that at WTC. I'd rather not do it again.
All right. Well, now to talk about stats. I'm sure you're all really excited about these. They haven't really changed that much, except kind of they got worse. Eldar had 68 players playing them for a 9.8% overall meta representation. They won 71.6% of their games, so they actually went up in win percentage and broke the 70% barrier and are at roughly 72% now for that week. They won 8 events. That's 8 out of like 13 events, I think, for the weekend. So the vast majority of events. They top 4'd 18 events and they top 10 to 34 times. They have an over up at 3.53. So, yay. Gene Steeler Colt are in second place for win rate performance with a 65% win rate, 3.9% meta representation. They won 2 events. They had 5 top 4s, 9 top 10s, and a 2.47 over rep. And then in third place, Imperial Knights. Man, none of this is surprising me whatsoever. 6.2 meta representation, 53.4% win rate, 1 event win, 5 top 4s, 12 top 10s, and a 1.55. Death Watch creep up into the top 5 for faction performance this week. 2% of the meta, 58%. I guess some of this got a little bamboozled. 58% win rate, 4 top 4s, 5 top 10s, and a 3.81 over rep just because they have such a low meta representation at 2%. So yeah, they're in the top 5. And then the last top 5 faction is Custodes, 10.2% of the meta, 57% win rate, 6 top 4s, 16 top 10s, and a 1.13. So perfectly balanced in a meta that is totally unbalanced. And
yeah, being balanced in this meta is usually a sign that you're a little broken.
Yep. And then there are some factions that we pretty much expect kind of just at the fringes. You have Thousand Sons, Necrons, and Chaos Demons in the mid 50s for win rates. Thousand Sons and Necrons each won an event, but nothing terribly special going on otherwise. Nobody else won an event. The bottom is also kind of as we've predicted from the last few weeks. Votanner at the bottom with Death Guard.
Shocked, horrified.
Grey Knights are also down there. World Eaters, and then Adeptus Sororitas, or Sisters of Battle, are
Art of War confirmed.
B
B-tier Grey Knights aren't doing well.
Yeah, the only reason they were so high is probably because Jack Harpster, I think, was on that episode and ranked them that high. Yes, if you are one of like 3 people on the planet who can wield that army with amazing expertise, you too can win games. Yeah. Otherwise, everything's kind of in the middle. Now to some stats to make us all sad.
Well, what were just run me by them again. What were the event wins this week? So there were 12 events, right?
There were 13 events.
13 events. What exactly won all the tournaments? Let's just quickly run through that again.
8 tournaments were won by Eldar.
8 of 13. Yep, just to confirm. Yeah.
2 out of 13 by Gene Steeler Cult. And then 1 each by Thousand Sons, Necrons, and Imperial Knights.
Yep. Cool.
So we're like 10 weeks in now, I think. I think we're 9 weeks in, actually. We have like 12,000 games total played. Eldar have made up like 10.9% of the meta with a 68.8% win rate. They've won 32 out of 69 events, 95 out of 276 top 4s, and they've made up 189 out of 690 top 10s with an overall over-rep of 3.15 and a 2.74 T-whip.
So just for confirmation on some stats there. So the math was they've won 32 of the 69 GT size events that we've tracked, which gives them a 46.37% win rate for events, like event win rate of 46.37. If you have attended an event in the 10th edition, there is a 46.4% chance it was won by Eldar. Could I ask you to tell me how many factions have a lower game win rate than Eldar have event win rate?
You said 46.
46.4.
46.4. I'm sure I can find a few. Give me just a second while
I'm
I
pretty
pull
sure
up my
it's like,
numbers.
if I go over to the meta dashboard, I'm pretty sure I can look at this because that's what the meta dashboard is good for. I'm gonna show up
It's
a little
real
bit
bad.
screen
I actually have them at 33 out of 69 as an aside. Under 46%.
Good. So if it's 33 out of
Is
69, that's 47.8%. So
right.
for
So
anything
that's
under 48%.
that is a lot of factions. So that's like half the field. 46. So that's Chaos Knights, Orcs, Black Templar, Space Marines, Adeptus Mechanicus, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Astra Militarum, Sisters of Battle, Space Wolves, World Leaders, Drukhari, Tau, Grey Knights, Death Guard, and Leagues of Votann are all under them.
Okay. Every
Uh,
single one of those factions wins games less frequently than Eldari win tournaments.
And there are only 10 factions who are at or above, and one of
And
those is
one of them
Eldar, so
is
9.
Eldar.
Yep, and one of them is Eldar. So, yeah. The only
Eldar
other
are
tidbit that I've got
1.5 tournaments away from winning half of all events this edition.
they're probably going to hit it next week. I'm just going to be honest. They're probably going to hit it next week based on their current win rate of events. They have won almost as many events as Drukhari won in all of 9th edition. I think they're just shy of it.
Yeah, I think the stat we had was...
Oh, no, they're past it. That's right. They actually broke it. 1 second.
No, they broke through Harlequins, right? They
broke through Harlequins.
Yeah. So
they're
Harlequins
6 for Drukhari.
We had Drukhari all of 9th edition from start to finish the entire time. That army that was broken for, remember, like a year and a bit. Eldar have won 67% of the number of tournaments that Drukhari won during that entire period already in 10th edition. Already.
Yep.
They have surpassed Harlequins, who I believe won 30 tournaments through all of 9th edition.
It's something like that, yeah. It's like roughly 30.
Yeah. I don't know if we have the stats for like all-time event wins in 9th edition, but Drukhari are probably first or second.
I think Tyranids are number 1.
Yeah, Tyranids are probably first.
They have 62.
Cool. So the entirety of 9th edition, where we had Crusher Stampede and Tyranids being incredibly powerful, Eldar have already, in 9 weeks of tournament play, half of that in 9 weeks. The Tyranids took over. Over half. The Tyranids got in 2.5 years and a year of being the single best army in the game, with a little bit of time off for like Harlequins being like in and around them. So yeah, Harlequins and Eldar Harlequins and Nerds cannibalized each other, and Eldar like aren't really having that. Genestealer culture at what, like 30% of that in terms of event wins for 10th edition?
Genestealer cult currently have 14 event wins for all of 10th edition.
A little over a third.
Yep.
But for context on that, that is 47 of 69 tournaments, is 68% of tournaments have been won by 2 factions this edition.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, it's bad. It's real bad.
Like, the thing is that I know that it's bad, right? Everybody knows that it's bad, but it's so astronomically worse than it's ever been. Like, for context, when Harlequins had a win rate that was this high, or was almost this high, I don't even think it was this high. Like, Eldar are saying, what, like 72%? Harlequins were like towing 70?
They almost hit 80 at one point, I believe, is what it was.
Harlequins almost hit 80 at one point, or Eldar
just for like 1 week, basically. It was that week where Adepticon happened, and they just
like Harlequin, that was the first one
it.
where they were like fully pre-nerf Void Weavers, right?
Yeah.
But like, if we're talking like after, we saw Light Sadath got hit, changing in range. Mirror Architect got hit. They lost army-wide a point of invulnerable save. Void Weavers went up 40 points. They had faction secondary changes, like, and everything went up points, like, across the board. And Eldar are more powerful than that was in a meta that is overall more hostile because there are more armies. Like, we run the behind the scenes. We have the faction like Elo and all that sort of thing, which roughly tracks how good each faction is compared to each other. Custodians and Imperial Knights, I think, are at the same level that like peak Harlequins were, and Eldar are like above that, right? Yep. Like, there is just so much. Like, if you transported Harlequin, like if you transported Custodians or Imperial Knights into the 9th edition meta, they would be as strong as peak Tyranids, peak Harlequins, and Eldar are blowing them out of the goddamn water, so much so that it's not even close. I love that your cat is just here and being petted this entire time. It's very much keeping me like slightly sane here. Like the stroking is like helping with the allergies. Like I would be like dying right now if your cat was actually here, but it's working for me. I'm actually about to start sneezing, but don't worry about it.
My favorite is that Dan Morris just gave us 100 Canadian dollars and just said kitty. So yeah, the cat is here to help us all with
deeply, Dan, and also Tim, who laundered $1.99 through us and said, "What the?"
So yeah, I mean, emotional support cat is here for just that reason. The meta is terrible, and we're really, really hoping that GW has noticed and that GW is going to do something effective in a couple weeks. Like, if it takes them 4 nerfs like it did with Harlequins and Tyranids, we're going to have kind of a bad situation on our hands for a bit.
We already have a bad situation on our hands. I think you have to strip this faction down to being unplayable and buff it back. Like this faction needs to go down to like a 30% win rate for like a couple months to just like figure out what's wrong with it and
just
like fix it from the ground up. Yeah, just like put it in the ground so that nobody has to think about Eldar, and the Games Workshop can like go into the lab and make it playable. I don't care if you put it back to 50% after that, but just like put it in the bin and then figure it out.
Put it in the bin until their codex comes out.
Exactly.
And then you can fix it in the codex.
Eldar don't have to be good for the next couple of months, guys. It's okay. You've already won more tournaments than you're meant to win over a tournament anyway. Like, they don't need to be playable for a bit.
They've won more events than they won the entire time that we tracked 9th edition events.
And they were the best faction for a decent period of time in 9th edition during like the Hail of Doom period and the end period as well, a little bit.
Yeah. Asuryani, for the record, across like all of 9th. Let me pull it up real quick. I should be able to remember this a little bit faster, but I have to hit the all button. I don't think, because we split out Harlequins, so they're a separate number, but they won 33 events and they've already won more than that.
They've matched that exactly.
They've matched it exactly, yeah.
So today, 9 weeks into the season, is the day that Eldar matched their 9th edition win rate record.
Yep.
Or like event
this week.
Record.
Yep, this week. So that's it. Things are bad. Hopefully they get better. Hopefully GW just puts Eldar straight into the dirt. I say this as somebody who is painting very lovingly an Eldar army, that it should just be in the ground. And that's okay.
Yeah, as Matty says in the chat, clearly we just need to adapt. Everybody, run more chainswords, look in your codex, find the combos. Every codex actually has a unit with anti-Eldar 2+ on every gun in it. You just have to like beat your head into the matchup 15 times to unlock it.
No. You have to look at it like one of those. Can you see the image in the inside the image pictures?
Yeah, of course.
One of those illusions things. You just have to stare at it long enough, and eventually you'll cross your eyes, and an image will pop out for you.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, definitely. I have a feeling that we're just not going to get a Jeremy today.
That's probably right.
Which is fine. So now that we've talked,
did you know that when Eldar score like 37 victory points, they have a 50% chance to win the game?
Oh Jesus!
Like I'm looking at our chance to win data, and it's like obnoxious.
I guess
like the average is 50% chance to win happens somewhere around like the 65 to 70 point mark. Eldar's happens at like the same point that other armies are hitting, like 9% chance to win.
I have a feeling it's because some Eldar players have like 3 fire prisms and a Wraith Knight left at some point, and they're just like tooling around the board.
Because a lot of people just concede on turn 2.
It could also be that, and then the numbers just get entered this way.
Yeah. So anyway, the main thing is that GT that was going to ban Eldar, we should have just let it.
Yeah, we should have just accepted that they were correct and gone with it.
Yep. Never forget the on Codex launch. They were already nerfed. They then got nerfed again, and they're still doing this. On launch, in the data cards that they shipped out to everybody, Vipers, Warwalkers, and Death and support platforms go to 3-man squads, and they were all cheaper on launch.
Yep. I guess the other question. Oh man, that looks like so much money. Higher. 1,500 Icelandic currency. 15 reps into
I think
Eldar
it's
during
Crowder,
WTC.
but sure.
Yeah, I don't know. ISK, Icelandic something.
Yeah.
I walked by Ayer's table multiple times during WTC and only got head shakes in response every time.
So
It was
I think the most important thing is you did it with Eldar, or you did it with Imperial Knights, and Imperial Knights aren't allowed to have fun because they're not an army that deserves to be in 40k, as everybody knows my opinion on this is.
I actually love big robots. I love them fighting giant Tyrannid bugs because I think
I love
it's
the robots
cinematic.
in Legion Imperialis. That's exactly where they belong.
Interstellar credits
I
is
own
definitely
like
the correct way.
7 big knights, and I still hate the army. It disgusts me. My first
I
ever
just
podium was with White Scars and 3 big knights, but don't care.
When is rules cut off for LGT again? You said it a little bit earlier.
It's usually 2 weeks before the event, so it would be like the 20 somethingth.
So you'll have like a week post maybe when the
Yeah, I mean, list
they'll
submission
get
will be
us.
the Sunday before the event. So
Okay. So you have a week, like less than a week, basically, to kind of get some
no, it
things
should be
put
more than that.
together.
If the list submission would be the 24th of September, and the second week in September, the last date it could reasonably be is the 15th, so it's at least 9 days, and it could be the second week in September could technically be the 8th, and could like be the 8th because the Friday technically counts.
Yep.
The current in his hate list.
Knights, spiky knights, orcs, Votan, elves, and spiky elves. Do you
I
hate
actually don't hate
Drukhari?
Votan. I think Votan models are fantastic, and I'm a big fan of the line. I just did not like the way that the army launched. So that you nothing to do. You can take Votan off that list. You can probably put Tau onto it though. Despite, but that's mostly Tau players. I'm not sure that's quite the same thing. But you're pretty close.
Are you really hating on Drukhari too? That makes me a little sad. Deep
I hate
inside.
all elves that are in sci-fi settings. Elves belong in fantasy and should not be in sci-fi.
I love it. So what are you going to take for LGT if they currently? What are you thinking of taking to LGT?
If it was tomorrow, I would play Eldar because I'm not insane.
Makes sense.
Sorry.
I mean, and
token and fantasy races shouldn't be in 40k, but dwarves are humans that are mutated in the 40k context. Votan are not dwarves.
You're trying to ask Innes to argue with you in a way that makes logical sense, and that's not how you're going to win an argument.
Also, I'm not responding to anything that you say that doesn't involve you sending us money and out. So,
I guess we had one other question before, like from chat, who gave us money, which was Bums, who said if GW tried to fix Votan with only points, how many points does it take?
Okay, so I actually got a chance to like look at some Votan points today. I would start by just like adding 1 to every ballistic skill profile on their data sheets. Just like all of them, just like make that army BS like 3 and 4 on the heavy weapons. I would make the judgment tokens be +1 ballistic skill, not +1 to hit, so that they stack so it works with +1 to hit abilities. And then you could probably get away with like I would do like a 10% point buff at that point. Just like anything that's like 130, drop it to 120. Anything that's 165, drop it to 150, and go from there. Like +1 to hit army wide, have the +1 ballistic skill stack with +1 to hits and 10% points drops, and then go from there. I think they'd maybe still be too weak, but they'd be playable. And then from there, you could then go slightly more targeted across the board on specific buffs to units that need help, because I think some units would probably be playable with that, and some units would need more help. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Although the Land Fortress can probably just stay terrible. I don't think that thing ever needs to be good. It looks like a block of butter somebody deployed.
I think that a lot of Votan vehicles look better when you make them hovercraft instead of like tractor wheeled vehicles. Like when you slap the conversions with hover are so much better. Apparently, Dan also just bought Tim one question. And yes, Ben, you can pay for more cat pets. I accept currency in exchange for rubbing cat bellies until she bites me in a second.
I suppose the real question is, what's the cat's name? Come on, Nathan.
Bailey.
Bailey. There you go.
The other cat is Jameson.
Bailey and Jameson. You have interesting names for your cats.
They're themed.
So Dan has bought one Tim question that I'm going to, I suppose I'll answer. And then Ben has paid money for cat pets. Thank you, Mr. McJurek. Congratulations on your win at Salt Lake Open.
Also, congratulations on your lairdship, sir. Sorry, Laird McJurek.
Laird McJurek. Yeah, I mean, why is the Land Fortress just like? Why is it 245 points in BS4? Like, I don't get it.
That's really the thing that made the least sense for me about AdMech and also for Vertan is that they made their ballistic skill worse on like
Admech went down
everything.
a point of save. That was the wild one. We're going to reduce lethality across the board. Also, fuck you.
What was for me? It's that they reduce lethality across the board for like Terminators and for vehicles, but like most base infantry are just dudes who die.
You could probably give Votan back Armor of Contempt army wide.
For everyone.
Yeah,
basically.
just for everything. Like, don't touch the points. +1 ballistic skill and give them all Armor of Contempt, and then I think you'd probably be like, I don't even think they need points changes at that point. If they just like hit better and tank better, like they're still slow, they're still like you don't have an invulnerable save. But at that point, like I think there's probably like, but keep the like you can wound reroll into them. That was always wild. But Armor of Contempt, Armor of Contempt cover would actually keep their stuff like reasonably well alive, even while it was expensive.
It's funny because their buffs from judgment tokens are actually pretty good, right? Like +1 to wound is a very strong buff.
Wildly good buff. Yeah, for
like
sure.
A wildly good buff. Probably one of the strongest buffs in the game, and yet it doesn't move the dial for that entire army.
The problem with it is that you only get like 4 units in a Votan army. So by the time any of them die to give you judgment tokens, you don't have an army left to use the judgment tokens.
That's totally fair and reasonable.
Okay, how do you fix Death Guard? AJ, that's not any money. I'm kidding. Death Guard.
Death Guard need a whole index rewrite. They're actually in a spot where I just think that army is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if you were really going to try and hit it, it would be something like change the contagion to be +1 to wound if they're within contagion range rather than +1 to hit. Rather than -1 toughness to like actually have it matter. And then maybe give you crits on 5s while you're in melee, while you're in contagion range as well. Just like up the damage output on like everything. Just like make that army do damage. It's still like ain't gonna like get there, but if it gets there, you should be like punished to fuck for them getting to you.
Yep.
Minor points drops across the board, like talking like 5 to 10%. You don't want to make Death Guard a horde army. And then a real detachment. That's kind of the other thing. Like the sticky objectives thing is wildly stupid. Give them like an actual detachment ability. Give them like a defensive mechanic for their detachment ability so they can actually use it. I would also consider the one that I like is give them an army-wide 6-up Feel No Pain and then 5-up if you're being led. Just give it like the Necro mechanic so that they are resilient and then they become 5-up with like while being led by a character. So the vehicles are 6-up and then the units with a character are 5-up, and then you get rewarded for running all your little shitty things. And then you could maybe even make it like +1 to Feel No Pain for that. So if you run like a Lord and one of the Virulent, it becomes like a 4-up Feel No Pain. And then you can have like a Plague Marine squad that's damn tanky, but still a Plague Marine squad. And it's just like kind of the walking wall that gets at you. Yeah, I actually kind of like that. 6-up Feel No Pain, 5 if you're being, and then +1 for each leader you have in the squad. And then that would be kind of cool. And then Mortarion could probably do with like an extra attack or 2.
He could be like Magnified, where at least he's got like better auras. Maybe does more
I actually
low key.
Mortarion's auras are wildly great. Ignoring modifiers in a bubble and brutal ones to wound are completely fine. I do not have particular issues with like Mortarion's buffing abilities, and his psychic attack is pretty good. He just doesn't hit hard enough. He probably needs like dev wounds and an extra attack is probably what I would go. But yeah, I don't think you need to change points on Death Guard. Like I think the amount of stuff you get in a Death Guard army should not be high, right? Like they should not be a horde army, but up the lethality, make the contagion range actually matter by giving like a lethal, like giving like 2 actually good lethality buffs. I think either +1 to wound, like +1 to wound into the target, or crits on 5s, or both. Like I don't mind. I think you could probably do both. And then like the leader Feel No Pain thing as like a detachment rule. I think that would probably be like what I would go for.
Yeah.
You can keep the stupid sticky objective one, or honestly, you could just give them as split part, disgusting and resilient, and then it stops the vehicles being like. I don't think you can just give them like an army-wide 5-up, because then you end up with like Plague Crawlers and Rhinos being like randomly obnoxiously tanky. But 6-up, 5-up, 4-up if you've got the Virulent as well. I think that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Maybe 4-up is too much, but I would need to like actually see it on the table. And maybe you could always like point the characters up a little bit to accommodate for that, like the Virulent ones.
Maybe make it a stratagem like what they did, or an enhancement like what they did with Tyranids.
Yeah, enhancement would work as well. Like there's a lot of ways you could approach that. The fact that all their stratagems key off of infected objective markers, you have to be in contagion range of the infected objective marker to get the benefit, is bonkers. Their Cloud of Fly strategy, which would just work like the CSM one, where it becomes like the untargetability. Like the fact that it doesn't do that is insane. And their -1 damage should work in shooting as well, not just combat.
Definitely. I guess the Breaking Heads has a question of how many super chats does it take to make Innis play Votan at LGT?
Well, because he didn't even ask that with a super chat, I'm not even entertaining the question. So he's clearly not like even slightly invested in that making that happen. But
It would have
you
to
would
be
also have to buy me a Votan army because I have like 2 starter boxes and a Brokir and a Grimnir, and none of it's painted. So
all right.
yeah, I think Death Guard would be actually really cool with that. Like they would be a wall of if this hits you, you get punished, but like you can stop it hitting you, right? There is options and counterplay to that. You have to work to make a squad die, but it will die if you like really invest in it, and it's still slow, right? Like it's still, you're not making it massively hoardy, you're not making it insanely fast. Like none of those things are things that Death Guard should be. Dominic, that I appreciate the offer, but that is still not like it's not Fred saying it, so it's not asking the question. But I appreciate the thought. Let's go with something like you would have to cover all of every expense I incurred for LGT, plus making it worth my time, plus the opportunity cost of me not getting to try to do well with another army. So that would probably involve like paying for me to go to another super major on top of that. Of the same size, so you'd have to pay for my LGT and pay for me to go to LVO. There we go. That's a lot. The bar. Yep, that is. That's like $3 or $4 grand. So minimum, and I would still probably not say yes. So there we go.
If you hit $4 grand, Innis will probably.
I don't actually want to go to LVO. That's the like. You'd also have to convince me to go to LVO. So there we go. That's something like a line.
There you go.
And Ben can lodge me LVO for free, but I want to stay in a hotel that's nicer than the Gold Coast. So,
I mean,
although Ben, I might still take you up on that just as an aside, because the accommodation was wild last year. So we can maybe talk.
you could come to Adepticon. I got a couch.
I'm definitely not doing that. It has to be a super major I wanted to go to, and Adepticon definitely doesn't meet that.
That's fair. That's reasonable. Nobody wants to come to Adepticon anymore. Oh, one tap with foe and a wise man once. I don't.
Right.
Oh Lord.
I'm gonna do the plugs, and then we're gonna go on to doing the questions because I feel like we're meandering.
I mean, that's what our episodes are always like, Innis.
That is true, and honestly, Bailey is a wonderful co-host. So
it's true.
So, hey everybody. Thank you so much for continuing to be with us for Stat Check, even when we have meandering, wild episodes like this, where all we can really talk about is how grim the game is. I feel like, I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of our episodes are talking about how grim the game is and how much we're waiting for the next balance patch. I don't know what that says about us, our mentality, or what we're waiting for in the game, but I need to convey one thing before we really start with it. I am having a fantastic time with 10th edition, and I am really enjoying myself. I am playing an absolute ton of really fun games against great opponents. 12 of my 14 games at WTC and War Masters were phenomenal, and the other 2 were no fault of the people I played against. They just happened to be a hungover guy and Eldar. The other 12 games were fantastic. I had some of the best fun playing 40K I've ever had. One of the most fun games of 40K I've ever played happened within the last 2 months. But despite that, everything is on fire. But I think everything's always on fire with 40K. I complained about every meta that we've been part of since basically the beginning, even when everyone else is like, this is fine. So I want to just convey that when we're complaining, take it from the place of love that it's intended for. We all want the game to be the best it can be. And when it's not that, it frustrates us when we feel like we can see the path to it being that. But if you're enjoying 40K right now, that there is nothing wrong with that. If you're attending events right now, there is nothing wrong with that. Please continue to do so. Events right now need your support in more ways than one because attendance numbers are not as high as they used to be at the start of 10th edition, and people are definitely waiting. But go into it with an open mind. The game is still pretty fun. Games with your friends and all that against like not the best armies are still wildly entertaining.
I've had a lot of fun playing not Eldar as well.
Exactly.
Like, just to continue off Innis's point, like a lot of fun playing Deathwatch into people's armies, a lot of fun playing essentially non-Eldar has been what's going on.
Jeremy's joined us, but I'm not adding him until I've done the plugs. He can wait in the naughty timeout zone. Nope.
Finish
So,
the plugs.
thank you so much, everybody, for being with us for what has been so far an annoyingly negative episode in a time where I don't want to be negative. We really appreciate you guys all being here. There are 53 people currently watching live, which is still insane to me that people sit there and watch us live every week. And I really appreciate all of you for doing that. If you want to support us, a couple ways you can do that. And it's just dropped to 51. Like I've said that. Now I feel bad. If you're enjoying the show, please do check us out every Tuesday at 11 p.m. UK, various other times across the globe at youtube.com/c/statcheck or wherever you get your podcasts in the next couple of hours after that. It means a lot to us if you could leave a like, a comment, a subscription, all that kind of thing for the interaction on either your platform of choice for the the podcast or on YouTube itself. If you're in a position to, we would love it if you could check out our Patreon as well. That's patreon.com/statcheck, where you can get access to our Patreon Discord, as well as a bunch of other awesome communities. A 15% discount at red-dragon.ca, who is one of our principal sponsors. You can also interact with a whole bunch of incredible people across the community. We were literally in there roasting the R4 tier list that came out today, and Jack Harpster jumps in to defend it and just immediately starts bashing on people. It was fantastic. I always have great fun with that. So please do drop by if you are in a position to. We are currently wrapping up the top 16 of our TTS league, and we'll be starting a teams event after that fairly shortly. And it's a great place to be, a wonderful community. You can also check out a couple of other shows on the network. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Enter the Matrix is now moving to a bi-weekly format where Nathan Roberts and Typhus will be covering all sorts of team-related content, and X and One, which is the slightly more intermittent but usually bi-weekly show with Tim and Cliff, where they cover all aspects of 40k and being a better person and all that sort of thing, while also having a life outside of 40k, which is not something I can relate to personally. So it's not a show I'm on often, which is a good or bad thing, depending on your perspective. You can also check out the Etsy shop for Saltar Games, where you can get access to a bunch of StatCheck merchandise, and red-dragon.ca, where you can see our things like our objectives, our dice, and also if you're a Patreon member, you can use your discount code for 15% off there. They do ship internationally in both those cases, so if that's something you're interested in, please just check it out. Finally, stat-check.com/coaching for myself and Typhus. If you are interested in getting better at any aspect of 40k, please do check it out. We would love to help you as we transition, especially with the balance league coming up. We've got a bunch of big tournaments. We're getting into LVO season, team selections for a bunch of WC teams. If that's something that interests you, check it out. We would love to have you along and see what we can do for you. Otherwise, I'm now going to add Jeremy in, and we're going to actually go on with the show, where we're basically just going to show questions now, and then if we run out of questions, we'll be bashing our heads back and forth with the chat. Thank you so much for being with us as we move on to the second half of the show. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing, pal?
Sulking.
How's your car?
I'm annoyed. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just
waiting
frustrated.
For
I spent 2 hours trying to fix a signal light. Did everything according to the instructions, right part. Still not working. So now I have to take it in. So rather than paying $6 and 15 minutes of my time, it's going to be like $100.
It's not great. Love the shirt. Team Iceland shirts are nice. I definitely needed to try and get one of those this year, but I forgot to order one. So
yeah, Air was very generous and offered to swap after I punted him into the sun at War Masters.
He's a good lad like that.
Somebody ran up to me and was like, "I love your show. Here's a shirt," and then ran away.
Yes, bums. I did try turning it on and off again. I also tried replugging it back in, replacing it, double checking the part numbers, everything. I'm done.
That's why
before we get too deep into the show, though, Jeremy, how was Capital City Bloodbath this weekend?
Yeah, Capital City Bloodbath. It was kind of weird. It felt a little odd, actually. Namely because Francois wasn't there. Because he won last year, and so him not showing up to defend his title was kind of indicative of where things are at. The event had about 2/3 of the attendance that it had last year. We had, I think, 80-something people, and last year we had over 120. But yeah, it was kind of an odd weekend. Up until round 6, it was very funny because I was repeating the exact same path I had last time. I had gotten a draw midway through on day 1. And so was headed to finish second if I won my last game, and then I threw my last game. So, yeah, it was. Aside from that, I just played with the GSE that I was playing at War Masters.
Entirely fair.
Yeah, that's what I was used to, so just decided to go with it. Borrow the army off of a buddy. I know I'm sitting on about 2,500 points of new in box GSC. We'll see if it stays with me, but it probably won't.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
It's okay. Dan Morris contributed $100, 100 Canadian for Kitty, so like, sorry, we can pay your editing fees this month, Jeremy. I promise.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, aside from that, it was a good weekend. Tim Dietlif's Team Canada and fellow teammate for like regular team events took the event with Eldar. One of the.
Is Tim won like everything you guys have run for like the last 3 months or something stupid like that?
Something close to that. Yeah. Well, no, he didn't win Capital Clash because he lost to Zach.
That's right. Showing that even Eldar can even help a man who loses fights to bushes win tournaments.
He was a killer at the WTC, so I certainly can't complain.
Yeah, for sure. We ran some fun stats that you might have heard at the beginning of the show, Jeremy. Like Eldar have already matched their event wins for 9th edition in 10th edition.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep, and they're 2/3 of the way to Drukhari and halfway to Tyranids already.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I was going through it. Now, keep in mind, we're missing, I think it's 2 months worth of stats in that whole set, but that's going to be pretty close. And the fact is that that's almost 3 years of 9th data as compared to. There's also the fun one that I like the most is that there are 10 factions that Eldar don't have a higher event win rate than they have game win rates. Okay, that one. Eldar win 48-point-something% of the tournaments they go to, and there are only 10 factions with a higher game win rate than that. So they have a lower chance of winning a game than Eldar have of winning a tournament. Just for anybody who missed those stats, I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the context with which our complaining is coming.
Let's waylay into show questions.
Let's do it, because those are more depressing.
They're going to be so much worse.
Because I have show questions.
Let's do it.
But I'm going to editorialize. I'm going to editorialize a few of them because some of them, at least the first one, the second part of this is just like banging on GW, and I don't have a solution to that. It's not a question we can. That one now. Fuck. No, number 2 is a question that we can't answer.
That's the best kind of question, man.
Frank asks, aside from punting Eldar into the sun, how do you even begin to fix the faction at this point?
Punt them into the sun.
I think you do punt them into the sun. Short of rewriting the majority of their data sheets, you just need to make them like 25 to 30% more expensive, I'd wager.
I would go with I would not be confident beating 1,200 points of Eldar with a lot of armies.
Yeah, but we're talking about also bringing up other armies at the same time, not just punting Eldar into the sun.
That's fine. I'm okay with I reckon 40 to 60% increases on everything if I was beating. But
I think if you could put some units up 40 to 60%, like you could put a Wraith Knight up.
You don't have to put everything. Points. The Wraith Knight would be one of the best units
in the game. Striking Scorpion unit. That's poor striking Scorpion unit.
Yep.
Is already not good.
You could probably leave them alone. Just don't do the accidental Drukhari Thick City mistake of let's nerf all their good stuff.
A single goddamn unit the other index. You cannot buff a single unit, not even once. No, I don't want to think about it. It makes me hurt too much.
Part 3 is what would the Marine Codex detachments need to include in order to make them at least worth considering over Gladius currently? Well, I mean, they'd have to give you something comparable to what Deathwatch gets, right? Because that's the choice over Gladius right now.
Army-wide advance in charge and +1 damage on the charge and Lance. Let's do it. Let's go.
Okay,
give me old white scars from turn 1 plus Lance, and we'll talk.
Maybe 2 of those, not all 3.
Give me all of it. Dude, melee in 10th. You really worried about it?
That's fair. That's reasonable.
Give me it.
But
1 CP for Lance, but you get everything else.
No, Lance on the profile.
No, if Blood Angels don't get it, you don't get it.
I don't care. Blood Angels can use this detachment. It's fine.
All right. Dan asks, at this point, should we seriously be talking about just banning certain factions for the sake of the health of the game?
So we spoke a bit about this during the stats bit. The problem is, as we discussed, Eldar are as much better than Custodians and Imperial Knights are than the next set in terms of win rate and stats. And Custodians and Imperial Knights are about as good as Harlequins and Tyranids were last edition. So you have to hit 5 factions before it's even remotely looking playable. And all that really does is remove all the predators for Dark Angels, Death Watch, Thousand Suns, Necrons, and then you have the same problem recursively, and it keeps going all the way down until you're like, yeah, but sisters sure do wail on the Votann players in our 2-faction meta. So
no, I agree. It's actually really challenging to go ahead and do something like that because of the stratification that the meta actually sees right now. You need some books just need rewrites, but you need a complete repointing of most armies to really get to a point where we can start seeing balance. That being said, it is achievable.
Yep. I like this. You get advance and charge +1 damage and your choice of one of these 3 keywords on every unit that charges, like Kataz. That's yeah, 100%.
Ooh. I mean, wouldn't you just... I think you would always just take sustain too, wouldn't you? Because you have oaths?
It depends. Lance can be really good as well, right? And so can Devlins. So
+1 to wound is real. Yeah.
Plus there are units that like already have sustained and things like that, right? So
all right. There. Next question is from Mike. Is favorite Age of Sigmar faction? Asking for a friend.
Sons of Bahamut.
They killed High Elf. Of course you do. Of course you would. You're such a knight player, honest to God.
I'm not a knight player. The only reason that it's in my head is because at the doubles event that I ran on Friday, which by the way, doubles, super fun way to actually play the game right now because you don't care about anything. That's what we talk about a little bit more actually after this because I do want to talk about
Thousand Suns and Desolation Marines so we can turn off armor saves and shoot you with Desolation Marines.
Yes, you can also do that.
I don't think. Oh no, that does work because it's just
of course it does.
It's not like not like a lot of other things where they lock in direction. Yeah, that would be very funny. I would also slap them if anyone tried to do that at the doubles event, because it was a mandatory fun one. But no, the reason the Sons of Bahamut came to mind is that one of the guys I was playing at the doubles also played in the AOS tournament at Capital City Bloodbath, and he was playing a beautifully painted Sons of Bahamut army.
I am a big fan of dinosaurs. So Seraphon are where it's at. I also am very fond of Skaven. So those are my two, because science rats doing science things that blows them up kind of touches me deep in my soul.
Skaven were one of my 2 old world factions. So because they reintroduced high elves, but not in a cool way. So, and I don't think cities have enough of high elves for me. So yeah, Skaven or like that. The Varangard army where it's just like Archeon and like 12 character units or like 12 like dudes that are all like characters but in squads of 3. Like I want to do that. So yeah, like the Varangard or Skaven. Although I will say the Seraphon models are wonderful.
Yep. Preston asks a question that I don't think is intelligible, but it's if Eldar are broken, why are Harlequins like that?
Well, it's specifically like if the Aeldari Codex is such a problem, why are Harlequins so middling? And I would argue that actually those data sheets, if they were in any other book, they would actually be they would be frequently played. The problem is
are real good.
Void Weavers are amazing.
Void Weavers are
several
good.
national teams took them at the
WTC. Yeah, Void Weavers are a strongly playable 100-point data sheet. I don't think the Skyweaver is that bad. It's just very specifically keyed for vehicles in a book that doesn't need the help on that. I have seen them showing up as like Drakari allies a decent amount, and I think they're quite funded for that. The Solitaire is great. I think the Troop Master is like a little weak. The Troop Master could probably do with like having a melee weapon. A melee weapon like at all. Yeah, players I think are a little like players are like a point or two too expensive, but like I don't think they should be much more than what they are in terms of output. I just think they're probably slightly too expensive, and then the Troop Master just needs to like actually hurt when he hits you. And I don't know enough about the Spirit Sphere. I think the Spirit Sphere just kind of like confluences like it's double move for a unit that doesn't really need it in a faction that doesn't really need it.
I think
Death Jester is great.
So, Shadow Spheres have the lock on advance and charge as well, I think.
Yeah,
and Death Jesters are fantastic. So it's like I don't know. I guess players are a bit expensive, and Eldar don't need Harlequins.
Yeah, like
and that's kind of the problem. Like you could probably win like 5-1, 4-1 with Harlequins pretty easy.
Yeah, it's just that
like if you're
using the Aeldari book, why aren't you using the other stuff in it? You could play pure Harlequins if you wanted to.
Yeah, if you played like pure Harlequins plus the Incarn, I think you'd like be very capable of winning a major.
I was just about to say one of the teams at the doubles did show up with pure Harlequins with the Incarn. Someone got mad and I said, it can't be that good. And then they went, and then midway through round one, I was like, no, we have a problem here. These data sheets are still too good.
Yeah, like Yvrain in a Harlequin squad is pretty good. I think so if you just played like Ynnari Harlequins, I think you could easily win a major with that, with like pure Harlequins plus the Ynnari stuff. And then like you have the option of like if you want to stick in like Altark Wayleaper to be your warlord instead of your Vrain, because she doesn't need to be your warlord, and then stick in like or you could ally in like Ravagers or whatever. Like you put in your choice of shooting on top of it to like turbocharge the Void Weavers, and yeah, no problems.
So Dan F asks a question that I think isn't current enough, so I'm going to change it. What's the best class in Baldur's Gate 3 right now?
I have
I don't know. I don't have a computer that can play it.
Oh, yeah, man, that makes me sad.
Fine, but I'm pretty sure Karlach is best, girl. That's all I have.
True.
All I
that actually is reasonable. Bards and Paladins are the best Baldur's Gate 3 classes, in my opinion. But
always the Bard.
You can definitely Bard in Baldur's Gate 3 real hard, like Bard to like peak Barding. And that's all I'm going to say about it. When can we get Laird Ben McJurek on the show?
That would he needs chat so he can see. He can answer that.
When do you want to be on the show, Laird Ben McJurek? Do you even want to be a guest on our show? I don't know.
We can figure out getting Ben on the show. He's won enough stuff that I feel like we can probably bring him on and be like,
I mean, he did just win. He did just come back to WTC and won a 7-round super major. So
yeah, I know. We'll talk to Ben. I think we can make that happen. I'm meant to be writing a Goonhammer article with Ben at some point as well, so that'll be happening.
Yeah, he was in the next. He was in my DMs last night complaining about Elo being wrong.
Well, he should be complaining to GW about his ITC rankings being wrong because GW haven't submitted for Tacoma yet,
or for KC.
Is that because he went too low in the Elo rankings?
Yes, actually.
Fair.
Which I'm going to go on a very slight tangent here. Anyone who's in the Discord noticed my little announcement, and anyone who goes to the website will have noticed this. I did a complete rewrite of Elo and CRS last night because I found a mistake that had been propagating for over a year. Yeah,
I mean, it put me in like the top 3 or 4, so I'm okay with it being fixed.
It turns out you really need to be careful when you're naming your variables that they're not too similar, so they don't end up being crossed over. Oh no, Cass, I'm talking about KC singles, not KC teams.
The next question is
I'm in top 3 in CRS. Elo, I'm 6th. Sad.
What is everyone's favorite Green Day song?
Basket Case.
I was also going to say Basket Case.
Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I'm too edgy.
You're too young, so you probably just never listened to that.
I have absolutely heard Basket Case.
There's definitely a generational divide as to which albums of Green Day we listened to.
Yeah, Dookie is older than I am. Let's start with that.
Yeah, Dookie was my first CD, so
I'm pretty sure mine was a Plain White Keys album. So,
oh my god.
So yeah, either that or Time of Your Life.
That's a good
Time of Your Life is good as well.
But Time of Your Life is also like your
technically called Good Riddance,
graduation,
isn't it?
Sure.
American Idiot is obviously a fantastic song.
It has aged extremely.
If it wasn't extremely overplayed, it would absolutely have been my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
To answer your question, I'm assuming that's Fred that's on the Breaking Heads channel right now.
Yeah,
the reason that it's not showing any
patron, so
the reason that it's not showing any change is because when I rewrote it, I reran the entire thing in one batch from February of 2022 to today. And rather than look at what it changed this last week, I just said this is where it's at, and I'll start updating the changes on a weekly basis now.
I'm glad Ennis is wrong because that's not me, so that's okay. But I'm fine with that.
Donatas asks, "What were the most annoying early defenders to pair against for your respective teams?"
No, nothing. We were fairly happy with like everything in the meta. Imperial Knights were like weirdly awkward because we just kind of expected no good teams to have them, so we only had like 5 answers to them, not the full 8 that we could have had. So they ended up being like slightly more awkward than I wanted, but it never really mattered.
We found the same, although it was very funny if we still had both our GSC and our Eldar and they defended with Imperial Knights. We went, okay.
We really enjoyed the hey, okay, here's Dark Angels and Custodes. Just like go play. It was great.
Yeah, Chris had a bit of a night on his back after War Masters, so it wasn't until we didn't get that night off of his back until Italy.
Yeah, and the problem with Knights of WTC was like they couldn't really attack early, because if you put them out too early in the process, you would get double like pinned by 2 armies you couldn't play, and you couldn't defend with them. Or sorry, so you had to like attack with them like when there was no boards left that they were good on, or you had to defend with them early where they would get pinned, and there was just no real good answer. So you had to like thread the needle with them very precisely, which ended up just being really difficult.
No, that sounds about right.
Chaos Knights did a little better than that specifically. I think Chaos Knights are a worse army than Imperial Knights, but within the team meta, they ended up being better, because they paired cleaner. Yeah, like you could just throw them into a couple of things and have like reasonable options.
I know I have that here somewhere. Where did it go?
The next one is from Preston. Is this the highest CRS/ELO we've seen for a faction?
Yep, by a wide margin.
It's not actually.
Yeah, we got it corrected. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Jeremy had corrected it, so it's actually not as high for CRS and ELO, but they have won way more things than other factions have.
Yeah, it's very close. Like if I look at Drukhari and
Aeldari have a CRS of 1988.
Yeah, so
And-
Drukhari peaked at 2012, back in June of 2021. Jesus, Drukhari was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Harlequins peaked at 2081 back in, well, that 6-week window when they had everything.
To be fair, though, if Aeldari were a player, they'd only be the 25th ranked player.
Also, aside from
These are
WTC,
24 players are better than Eldar. That's pretty impressive.
aside from during WTC where they dipped ever so slightly in ELO, like the upward trend has been basically linear. So we'll probably see them break 2,000 before the balance patch hits in mid-September.
Mathematically, it's never gone down. It could hit 3,000. Like,
Yes.
Sure. Last night when I was rewriting it, there were a couple iterations that ended up going to 2,800 before I found out what was going wrong.
you should have just left it. It would have been
No, because things got really weird really fast. Yeah, one of the mistakes that I found, and it was something that had just been missed when I initially implemented the faction rankings, was the way that it works is it basically creates a double team between the player and the faction. Except what happens when you're playing the same faction? You both do this.
Yeah.
And it ends up double, and it doesn't cancel out properly.
Yeah.
Because one team was favored over the other. So I rewrote it so it accounts for mirror matches now, because then it should just be pure player skill at play.
That makes sense. So Luke asks, of all the indexes, how many do you think need fundamental rewrites?
You skipped the question.
That's because we already kind of answered the question before that one.
That's fair.
Because we talked about Votan and we talked about making changes for
Sorry,
them.
John, your
talked
question's
about
not cool and
Death Guard as
unique
well.
enough.
So, yeah, sorry, John, but your question was already answered, kind of, when we talked about design space a little bit earlier. How many do you think need fundamental rewrites, not just points, nerfs, or buffs?
Ooh, let's go down the list.
This can be for any
gonna hurt.
reason, either too strong, too weak, or have a terrible play style. Yeah, I mean, for terrible, I actually don't think that Darklands
No,
Drukhari
we're
have.
going to go down the list.
All right.
We're gonna go down the list.
We're going to go down the list in order of CRS. So in faction CRS. So give me
Okay.
1 second to load this up, because I think it's going to be like 20 of them.
For you.
Okay.
How many
Go
of
there.
them? So I guess we'll just answer in very basic ways. Just, do they need a rewrite or do they need points?
Yeah. Okay. Aeldari, fundamental rewrite. That army's fucked. Custodes, points, and a couple stratagems. I think they're broadly like I vibe with.
They're
the
nearly
playstyle.
there.
Yeah, they're nearly there. They're just too good at it. And they need to
Cults.
stop like owning the fight phase. Cults, points, and demo charges. I actually like the playstyle of the faction, and I don't think the respawning is as oppressive as people think it is.
I don't even think the demo charges are a problem.
No,
I think
they
once
just
you-
make
I
100% hard.
changes.
I think once you point everything up, it's fine.
Yeah, but I don't think you should want. I don't think I want to point Gene Circles up too much. Like 15 points for an acolyte already feels steep, and that's what they're pointed at. But it's because of demo charges. Like,
that's
that
fair.
unit needs to be a different data sheet if you're going to point that up. But it should be a horde army. It should feel like it is. It just is
I mean,
too
then
good at it.
You just have to mess around a little bit with regeneration then, and just make it not automatic for battle line units.
Yeah, I would probably push regeneration to like a 3 up for battle line, or like a 2 up for battle line, and a 5 up for everything else, or something like that. Like I don't think it's. But
I think once you've adjusted
Close
points, the drop turn doesn't hurt nearly as much. Same with
yeah,
the
and
same
like
with the third
just
turn,
demo charges.
which means that the stuff coming back isn't as impactful anyways.
And demo charges just need to be worse. And I would probably make the Nexus once per battle round rather than once per turn. The fact that that guy has 50 points in the best version of that effect.
Yeah, I don't really know. Every time I would explain my point is I can do a free strat once per turn. They're like once per battle round. Like, Captain, like, no, once per turn.
Yeah, because like the Tyrant is once per turn and a 12-inch aura, but he's 220 points, and like the Nexus is 50.
And he
can't
like be protected.
Well, he can. It's just very hard.
Yeah,
you have to make him anti-infantryable. But like, cults are like on the border for me. Like, I think you could probably fix it with either way, and it wouldn't be too bad. But orcs points probably, and I think orcs are honestly fairly fine. Like orcs are pretty like where I think armies should be right now. Death Watch probably points. Like I think Black Spear Task Force fits the vibe for them really well.
Yep.
I don't think there's any particular interactions in Death Watch that are problematic.
Hellfire Rounds and Desos is probably the only thing, but that's more of a Deso problem than anything else.
Yeah.
Demons.
Chaos Demons points, but I also think it's like egregious points on a few things.
Yeah, and I think that like mechanically they're fine.
I want to see a rewrite on Bellacor's data sheet, though. That data sheet should not exist in its current capacity and needs to have his power taken out of him and put into other things that aren't Be'lakor, because that ability is too powerful and should be very different.
Targeting?
Yeah, 100%. That should just not exist, and the army should be buffed to compensate, because it's so binary in a bad way.
Yeah, that's fair. We don't
Thousand Suns points and like a couple of mechanics, but broadly, I think they're fine.
I think the Cabal points could be rebalanced, and that would actually do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think Cabal points are slightly too easy to get right now, and that's about it. Like I think most things just kind of need to go down like one Cabal point. Like, mainly I would have it like if a sorcerer is in a unit, you get the higher of the two, and then maybe tamp like Infernal Masters or Exalt, and like a few things like down one or up a few costs by one, and then you'll be fine. And maybe change the free strat to like reduce cost by one and repeat rather than set it to 0. But like, there's lots of little things you could change there that would be fine. Necron's fundamental rewrite. That army is just.
I don't think it needs a fundamental rewrite.
I wholly disagree. I don't think that the way that army is built is like fits its detachment at all. Like the detachment.
I guess for me, I'm putting this in the context of there's going to be a codex that has more detachments. One detachment not fitting with the army is okay.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I think you need a fundamental like, data sheets in that army. Like the reanimator, the concept of reanimation just needs a rewrite.
I think it's fine. I think the issue. I think
absolutely smoking crack.
I think the issue here is crypto thralls more than anything else.
Crypto Thralls, Resorb, Reanimators, like they're all like there's like 7 mechanics on reanimation that are pushed, and then Transcendent Catan is like just should not exist in its current capacity. So fine, whatever.
The Transcendent Catan, I will agree, just shouldn't be able to take relics.
Yeah,
I
think stay at its current point cost and just no longer be able to take.
Yeah, when it was able to take relics and it couldn't regen, I was like, okay, maybe that's an intentional choice. When they gave it reanimation products, I was like, well, it's just an auto take in every army.
You can also kill it with a Technomancer.
You could
Chaos Knights are fine. Tyranids are getting something. I think realistically that army doesn't do enough damage and needs to be less good at scoring. CSM, I don't love their identity. I think they're too heavy on the shooting. I think that army.
I mean, the addition is too heavy on the shooting, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, but I think CSM
they have good melee data sheets. The problem is that you'd rather just shoot your opponent across the board.
Forge Fiends and Obliterators are like significantly too cheap. Space Marines, fundamental rewrites, like Gladius is way too good and everything else is way too shit, and their data sheets are hot garbage. Marine data sheets across the board are like the white bread in the saddest way, and the only thing that makes them playable is Border Discipline and Gladius.
Yep.
I was looking at I was cleaning up at the Tolf that imploded last week, and I was cleaning up all my intercessions, and I was just like, I'm never going to put these on the table because they just shit.
Yep. Yeah. Black Templars, points, guard, fundamental rewrite. There needs to be a limit on artillery. Like
their detachment is also terrible. Like
it's so boring.
It makes the army need to tilt so much further into platforms that never move.
Hey, why did they give you a rule that said stay still?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'll run the stuff that stays still. Cool. Fine.
Yeah, I guess I bite as well because I don't want to move, because if I move, none of my stuff gets its benefits anymore. Oh boy.
So here's the question I have for you. If theoretically Indirect was reworked to what it was in 9th, where it was worsen your ballistic skill and they get +1 to their armor, would it be okay?
No, because then it just becomes binary, right? It's either this does enough damage to table you and it's good, or it doesn't and it's an unplayable army, right? All you're doing is creating binary there. Like indirect should just never be like a viable answer to anything besides the 5 inches behind a wall if you spend 300 points.
Fair.
Yeah,
that's not
Mechanicus. I honestly don't hate the detachment. Like it's not great, but it's not like a fundamental rewrite. Their data sheets need rewrites. They're just like too weak.
Their army rule is pretty bad too.
The army rule is bad, but it's not problematically bad.
I think it's kind of problematically bad.
If everything in the army actually got the army rule, it might be a little bit better.
Yeah, that I'll give you. That like everything should have cannicles, basically. But yes. Drukhari, I honestly think the melee was an aberration and they're meant to be a shooting army. The melee data
one for nearly every other edition.
Yeah, their data sheets need rewrites.
And I think, like, honestly, Dark Lances are probably too easy to spam, but I think it's all data sheets and points. Like, you could adjust the army, like, fine-tune it a little bit and it'd be fine. Blood Angels, Sea Space Marines. Tau are, I think, fine. Like, Tau are, like, where I want the game to be right now.
They feel fair when you're playing on their level.
I would move a little bit of power out of Tetras. I think Tetras are wildly too good, and into a few other things. And then
Tetras should give like reroll ones to hit.
Tetras should just be like 50 points, like 50 points more for a unit rather than 80 points. They are Chapter Master, and they're weirdly like toughness 7 with 7 wounds. Like they should not be 40-point models.
14 wounds for 80 points.
Yeah, and then like you move some of that power out of Tetras, and it's fine. I did not say Rad Detachment is okay, Paul. I said it's not problematic. I don't think it's like a design failure. It's just not good. It's okay for things to not be good and for power to exist in other places.
I mean, I would say it's a fundamental design failure because it doesn't do anything.
I think the actual like detachment, like the detachment rule, attachment is more than just its detachment ability. The rules and abilities inside, like the stratagems, are not too bad.
The stratagems are fine. I'll give you that.
Like I think the army rule, like it's okay for the power budget of a detachment to not be in its detachment rule, right? That's completely fine. If the power budget is being used elsewhere. Yeah, exactly. Like the Chaos Knight detachment sucks, but the Chaos Knight detachment is good. So like not everyone can have the same power budgets in the same places. That's what makes armies feel different and unique. And I think that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
But I think if the data sheets in AdMech were like usable data sheets, that detachment rule would be like, oh, it's a cool nuance. It's like Shadow in the Warp. Like it's not a real army rule, but Tyranids have a weak army rule to have cool detachment ability and like theoretically cool data sheets, right? There's differences in power level.
Sure.
Now, I will say having a strong army rule and weak detachment rules does homogenize builds across detachments because everything will feel fairly similar because you're not getting a lot out of the detachment ability. But that's not necessarily a bad thing for some armies to be different like that and have fairly stylized like.
It also means that if a codex comes out and there's a severe disparity between between one of the detachments and the other ones with a strong army rule, you'll only see that.
Yeah, for sure. And like some of them are not going to be aimed at competitive play. Some of them I'm sure will be like narrative style ones. Like there's going to be a bike one for Space Marines that no one's ever going to play and things like that, right? But
it'll be the Gravis one.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's okay for that to exist. Like, yes, some of them could need buffs, but not everything needs to be good. Like some things can be there for flavor and for like nuance within and for like counter options and things like that, right?
Yeah, you have to have your relic pistols.
Yeah, exactly. World Eaters points almost exclusively, but I actually hate the way their World Eaters are built.
I think you could go either way on World Eaters. Adjustments. Like they need some.
The Blessings of Khorne mechanic is fine.
I think the Blessings of Khorne mechanic is actually the thing that makes the army need to be terrible. Because if that army is ever good, that mechanic is soul crushing.
Yeah.
Fair.
Like you can't have World Eaters that are playable because they have like 1 billion inch threat ranges on 1 billion units, and Angron comes back on a literal lottery that costs no resource. Right? Like that's not a thing that you can reasonably have be a fair and balanced army within a metagame without existing on a razor thin edge of balance.
That's true.
And I think that mechanic is just inherently problematic and should be significantly weakened in order to like incredibly improve the data sheets.
Yep.
Like I would drop like 40 to 50% of the power out of that and up like 60 to 80% of the power on the data sheets, and then that army is a lot more interesting.
I think even just removing the advance in charge would be enough.
Yeah, I would remove advance in charge or make it so you pick one, maybe not both, maybe not two abilities.
Maybe you can only pick one at a time for blood tithe abilities. That'd probably be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Or so like if you bring Angron back, you two of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, have it be like one movement or two combat buffs, like you choose, and then like have Angron be like.
You could have categories instead.
Yeah, I think that would be a more interesting way to do it.
What's the next one down?
Spitballing. Next one is Sisters. I think Broadly,
They just need a rewrite.
points, but rewrite would work too. I think like Sisters is just all their damage output options are too weak. Melta just kind of needs to have like anti-vehicle 3+ stapled onto it.
Yeah.
Or just 4+ even.
Yeah, give them like anti-vehicle, anti-monster 4+, and I think Melta's like okay.
Just anti-vehicle. Leave monsters alone.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's
They
fine.
do.
Like,
They do
Sisters-
need some kind of an answer to high toughness, and they don't have that right now.
Yeah, like they have
aside from rolling
Exorcists for a
fives.
wildly good data sheet, and then like they have the best chaff package in the game, other than maybe Nids, and then nothing else.
Mhm.
Yep.
Like that
What's
army
the
is running the garbage unit of Vol and three. What are they called?
More suits.
Paragons, because they have nothing else that's even remotely close to viable, and they at least do something.
The Paragon's having a strength 12 tank shock. It's very funny.
Votan, I love the Votan detachment. I just think their data sheets suck ass.
Yep.
I also don't like their army rule, but I also recognize that that is a very dangerous army rule to fuck around with.
The army rule, I would change it to be +1 ballistic skill, and then +1 to ballistic skill and +1 to wound, and that would be fine. The fact that it doesn't stack with other +1 to hits when they have like the call that
I
gets
like
+1
that.
to hit is
Yeah.
stupid. Like
Yeah.
change that alone, and I think that detachment rule is super cool. I don't love their like the like pick a unit to get 2 judgment tokens on. Like I think that's a little bland, but it's okay. Like I said, it's okay for things to be bland as long as their power level is in appropriate places. It's just the data sheets suck. I'd give them back, like I said earlier. I'd give them back void armor. I'd give them back +1 skill. I'd give them +1 skill across the board, and then leave it there without points changes, and then maybe come back with point changes if necessary afterwards. Void armor being the AP, not the give them the AP, reduce AP by 1, but not the no real wounds, and then give them +1 skill on basically everything. Don't touch the points. They're not meant to be a horde army, and I think you're like approaching interesting there.
Yep.
What's the next one?
Grey Knights.
Grey Knights.
Grey Knights
They
are
need
fine.
a
Grey Knights are like around the power level I like armies being.
I think they could use a slight points reduction, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they need that if you believe Jack.
Yeah, but I don't
I
think
guess it's also a well.
hopefully
And
this
this
army should only be usable by the 3 best players on the planet.
No, keep
It's
in
okay to have high skill cap armies in the game.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
okay
that
to
what
have
everybody's
a high
complaining
skill.
about at the moment? That there's no armies that like require to think.
You can have a high skill cap army, but the skill cap shouldn't be. You should be one of the top 5 players on the planet.
Nobody has put the effort into them because they're not sitting. No, I actually disagree with you on that. I think a lot of people could play Grey Knights to very reasonable success, but why would you put the effort in unless you're doing it for WTC? That's the actual question there. Like, I don't think Grey Knights are like some incredible mind-blowing giga army that you have to be incredible to play, but there was one build that worked. It took a while to find it, and one person put the effort into it because he was doing it for WTC because he couldn't play Eldar or GSE or Custodes or Space Marines, and that's it. That's the reason that army is not seeing experimentation. There are people who will do well with Grey Knights now that build is found. It will start to come out of the woodwork, and people will get good at that the same way people got good at GSC last edition or any other high skill cap army over the previous time. It is okay for armies to be like that, but right now the meta is so hostile to doing things that are cool that doesn't work. Cool.
Yeah.
And then Death Guard we spoke about earlier. I would fundamentally reroll like 7 of their mechanics. To make them like the wall, the unstoppable wall that punishes you like hefty if they make it to you, but struggle to make it to you, and I think that's fine. For anybody who missed it, my suggestions were change contagion range to be +1 to wound against the target if they're within contagion range, and if you're within contagion range and a melee, crit hits on 5s, and give them a 6 of Philippine army wide and +1 to that for each leader in your squad.
All right,
and no points changes. Like leave them where they are. So you end up with 6 of Philippine army wide, 5 up on squads that are being led, and then 4 up on squads that are being led and have a variant character as well to give you like an incentive to double stack the characters.
I like it.
All right.
And that only goes on Plague Marines because only Plague Marines can have that.
New
and I guess we
question.
get like Life is the squad at 4 up Philippine for Poxwalkers, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Chris. Do you know if the update we are supposedly getting in September is just
we know nothing?
We do not.
Like,
but
I can hope it's both.
Yeah, they said that this should be a points one. I think when they talked about the way that they were going to cycle.
I hope it's more. I really hope it's more because it's the
but
first one.
I hope it's more.
Start the schedule
like
on
mechanical changes, points. Just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
This is the first balance patch, and it's the first opportunity they're going to have to show the community that they care and they are listening. Make the goddamn most of it.
We just answered the second.
Wounds, people, please and thank you.
Melee, devastating wounds should be melee only, and it should be +2 AP on shooting and more wounds in melee.
Or hear me out. Dev wound should just you don't get an armor save.
I'm okay with +2 AP and then more wounds in melee. I think that would be fine.
All right. The next one we already talked about. The third one, oh man, somebody also put in more cat petting tax. Okay. We can't answer the third one because we are not in GW's heads.
I hope they watch that, Jack. It'd be cool. I like
It
the
would
idea
be
of people
cool.
listening to my deranged ravings.
I don't think that they would necessarily watch us, but I do know that they read our website and our articles.
Mhm.
And that's just
I'm sure there are
because
people at
they-
GW who listen to us, just not
Oh, for sure.
necessarily like in
Yeah,
a
but I mean,
professional context.
MetaWatch has made reference to some of the stuff that we do on the website, so it's clear that someone there is paying attention and is responding to what we're doing.
If
Right,
any of the
next
lower tier
question.
armies got a decent buff, is there one you would like to play if it got the rules or points to make it viable? Any of the ones I own, like I would love
play-
to get my Admech or my Votan out, but
Yeah,
I'd play
love to get that
Drukari.
out. I would also love to have motivation to get the Sisters army off the ground because I started assembling it 6 months ago and it's still sitting in boxes.
What's the most upsetting food?
whatever you like, viewer, your favorite food, it upsets me.
Well, I mean, so strumming.
And what
Is
you
that
should
the
do is you should get in the
fermented
comments
shark?
on the YouTube video. You should tell me what your favorite food is so that I can have the chance to revile it.
All right.
Pineapple on
And then
pizza.
I skipped Nick K's question, but because I think we talked about it a little bit, do you think there's a faction that's overrated and underrated for singles? I mean, we talked about it a little bit.
GSC are overrated and Eldar are underrated.
I feel like that's agreeable.
Yeah.
Elo Woozle asks, how do you rate OC and Battleshock compared to Objective Secured and Morale?
I like OC more and I like Battleshock more than both of those.
Yeah,
I just think Battleshock should require you to pass a test to clear it.
Yes. Once you are battle shocked, you should have to pass a test to unbattle shock.
I think that's the only change I would make to Battleshock. And then like it's still hard to fail, but once you fail it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think OC is actually fine. Like the abacus on it is a little annoying, but not that annoying. Like it doesn't really take that much.
Agreed.
It very rarely gets complicated, and
I think partly
still...
if there was significantly more melee in the game right now, it might have been a little more awkward. But I'm at the point where I'm now used to it, and it's like even when I have weird melee situations that do come up occasionally, that it's not that problematic anymore.
Well, and it's also very easy to be like, what's the OC on that unit? Oh, 1, 2. Like big units are very rarely more than that. Custodes,
Custodes, exactly.
and some guard units because guard
and some Necron units next to the Overlord one, the Barge, whatever he's called. Cackling Man Barge. There we go.
Yeah.
He gives +1 OC and an R, I believe. So you get OC3 on Warriors.
Nicholas DW is asking 2 questions that we cannot answer because we are not GW, unfortunately. I wish we could answer those questions because I wish I could tell you what GW has or hasn't learned, and I wish I could tell you.
Yeah. So for the listeners at home, what he's asking is, what has GW learned in the past month about what to nerf and buff that could help come September, and is that data and the predictability of regularly scheduled balance changes worth an extra month or 2 of a broken meta? That second question actually is something that we can answer. It's not, because it's not worth it, because the data comes very quickly now. Like we look at it this past weekend in a meta that many people are complaining about, many people are not enjoying. Attendance is down at some tournaments compared to previous years. We still had almost 700 players playing almost
12 tournaments, 13 tournaments.
Yeah, 13 tournaments. So
plus
thousands
RTTs
of
on
games,
top of that,
plus RTTs, plus just Basement Hammer. Like all of these things are impacted by balance decisions. We don't need to wait that long to get enough data to know when something is broken. Yes, sometimes things take a little while to develop, but when it's this clear, it should just be acted on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just hard. I think sometimes we forget that GW is a company that has to do.
There is probably a degree of they have
Right.
managed to convince the powers that be to give them a 3-monthly balance state, and they're not getting it faster than that. And it's going to be every 3 months, and that we're going to have to just live with that.
Which
I would love it to be tomorrow, so that like more people would sign up for tournaments and all that kind of thing, so that people can get back to enjoying the game quicker. But unfortunately, we have tied ourselves to a company that has business interests besides our enjoyment.
If they're fully baked changes, I'm okay with the meta being broken for a little while longer. But if they're half-baked changes at these scheduled things, then I no longer am okay.
If this slate sucks, I'm just stopping
meta
events for a while. Like I'm just not taking the risk.
Yeah, because the next question from Paul kind of touches on this, and it's something we're actually interested in tracking, which I'll talk about in a second, which is if the September data slate is a light touch that does barely anything, is a competitive scene in genuine trouble? hearing a lot of stories about events not breaking. So some events have come forward and say that they're not breaking even or are thinking about canceling events because they're not getting
I'm
as many
sitting at like
signups.
40% the signups for my GT in 2 weeks than I got the one I run in May. Like 40%. I think I have like 21 people signed up, 23 people signed up. I had 58 at my last one. It's the same venue, the same tournament, the same pack, the same terrain. 40%
And
attendance.
I will
Yep,
tell
I mean-
everybody that we are currently working on generating all the numbers for both the people who complete events, but also the number of people and the size of events are things that we're working on in the background right now.
So yeah, if you're in Scotland and you want to come to a GT on the weekend of the 2nd and 3rd of September, you should check out Clan Wars Scottish Open 4. I would love to have you along. Facebook, check it out.
Cultist Eric asks, could you ask David Gaylord if he prefers briefcases or messenger's bags, since he obviously doesn't like backpacks?
No, you ask him yourself.
No. Jack asks, and Jack Morris, until we get a data slate, what class in Baldur's Gate 3 are you playing? I'm playing a multi-classed Bard and Paladin right now. A Bardadin, as it were.
Okay. What armies were the biggest letdowns at WTC? What were the biggest positive surprises? And what were lists that we saw and would like to put on the table?
That MSU Thousand Suns looks like fun to put on the table and play. Like the one that Vic played seems like it could go right into singles.
Yeah, I've audibled over to Thousand Suns for my next event because I want to give it a bash.
I think
Right,
Tau were a
lieutenants?
letdown for the people who.
Tau did exactly the job we wanted them for, which was they went into the mines and they got points into like the hardest matchups for us pretty consistently, and they made pairings a breeze. So I was okay with our Tau. Guard were much better than we thought they were going to be, and we thought they were going to be good.
Yep, Guard did great.
Guard
They were
were
the
exceptionally
surprise,
better,
probably.
so much better for every team that took them. Deathwatch was the big miss for the countries that had
Deathwatch
nothing
were
that
hot
weren't at Pyro.
garbage at WTC. Yeah.
Mhm.
Turns out secret prep events are pretty helpful.
And then the last
Yeah.
one is you get to rewrite the problematic core rules in the next slate. What changes to the core rules would you also like to see on top of any army rewrites and repointing? We're just going to talk about core rules changes that we want to see.
Dev Wounds just needs to not exist or not spill or not have the impact it has right now. I think actually Innes's idea of it having two different mechanics for ranged and shoot and melee does actually sound pretty good.
I like
Like,
that. Yeah.
Dev Wounds in melee is probably fine because there's
Everyone's
very
melee
few
is strong, but fine. I'm okay with melee having a good and powerful mechanic.
Well,
Like, I
not
don't
just
think
that, but it's
nobody's
also one of
complaining
those
about
things where
Abaddon doing it, right?
correct, because there's also nothing that does 2d6 mortal wounds in melee with a guaranteed wound
Yeah, for sure.
yet.
I would
Yet.
probably change the charge rules to require the closest model to move first, and then have you go in back to that order, just to make that process faster. Like I don't think and I would buff melee like minorly in a couple of other ways. Like I would probably just allow consolidation towards the close enemy unit, the same as it used to be, not requiring it to go on an objective, and just give them that back, and then like you could either go towards the close enemy unit or towards an objective. If you get on the objective, or just towards the close enemy unit, like either, rather than requiring you to get into engagement.
Yeah,
or on
that
the
seems
objective.
reasonable.
I think I would probably do that, and then like melee would still be worse, but I think that would be fine.
It would be an improvement. I think if you gave Dev Wounds just to melee for mortal wounds, then it would also make melee combat stock go up a little bit, but not noticeably.
Probably prevent towering models from ever receiving cover from terrain.
Same with aircraft.
Yeah, cover. I mean, the aircraft already don't get it, do they?
I thought aircraft
While they're in
don't
aircraft
get it.
mode.
Oh, while they're hovering, they probably do.
Yeah, when they're hovering, I think when they're hovering, it's fine. They just become units at that point, right? They're just moving 20 models.
I guess they're just skimmers. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But I think when they're in aircraft mode, they don't get covered, do they?
I don't actually.
I
actually
think
don't
in the
know.
terrain rules.
I don't know off the top of my head. Anyway,
In the
yeah,
terrain rules, there's no exception for it, so it would
in
have
which
to be
case, yeah,
aircraft.
I would
version.
take cover off of aircraft while they're not in hover mode and towering models wholesale, unless they have it from like a specific rule.
I would change
The Dev
towering.
Wounds change. I would change, yeah. Towering, I would probably change to just being, if you're partially within a terrain piece, you count as being wholly within it for the purposes of line of sight. So that you can stand partly on a terrain piece and you can see through it, or you can walk up to a terrain piece and tow it and see over it, but you have to be on the terrain piece, and then you just don't have to fit like your whole Serap deck onto a terrain piece in order to see over it, and then that cleans up that mechanic very easily for towering.
Basically, the frontline
Pull in rules from last
edition.
edition. It would just be the toe into cover rules from last edition for
Yes, but
ruins, right?
Can you always see them?
I mean, you
No,
would be able
they
to see
would-
them
they
in
would-
that situation. It would just be they would just gain cover rules the same way, right? If they're touching the terrain, you can see them exactly the same as any other unit that's touching terrain.
Yeah, they would just get obscuring, but they would have a more lenient version of line of sight that allows them to.
Yeah,
get
so it's
toe
still
into
still
ruins.
powerful to them, but it's not punishing.
Yeah,
to
it's
them
still
like
a
it was.
buff. Like it's still and you don't just like immediately get to shoot knights. It makes knights less polarizing. It makes them easier to balance because you don't have to bounce around the first turn versus the second turn. Fail case.
It's why you can take away cover from them and stuff like that without Knights players
Yeah,
like
exactly.
going on a witch hunt or something like that.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
exactly.
I would also change blast, but
Yeah, I would cap blast at like double the gun's shots is the most you can ever gain from it.
That's still too high.
It's still too high, but I think like you can then up points on the problem cases at that point.
I think one of the things you could do to fix indirect is make it so that units could never have ignore cover benefits or something like that.
I would,
But, like-
or I would do something. Blast, I would probably do something like.
Ooh, I know. Blast gives you advantage.
Which is
Roll 2, drop the lowest for the number of shots on a weapon.
I like that, like a reroll on the number of
Yeah.
shots, basically.
I would maybe.
You'd have to rework like the number of shots that a bunch of guns have, but
I don't think you necessarily
I don't
do.
think you would have to. It would make
Because-
rolling stuff like Death was an absolute goddamn nightmare because you
Yeah.
have to roll every gun individually.
maybe you just turn units with those into one die.
I would honestly just turn it back to last edition's Blast
Last
and have it
edition's Blast
start.
would probably
Have
be
it start
fine.
at 10 models.
Mhm.
Like the fact that it starts at 5 is wild to me. Like it should definitely be even just like changing it to every 5 models after the first 5.
Or change it to every 10 models.
Sure.
Yeah, every 10 models, something like that. That would be fine as well. Yeah,
think
I
we'll
like
also
every.
make some
I actually
changes
like
in-
every 10 models. 10 models is probably the cleanest solution.
Make some changes in
I
indirect.
don't get why it triggers on 5 model squads. I just don't understand that. Like, why are you being punished for running the basic unit of 40k?
Yeah. And you aren't allowed to run an understrength unit in the first place, so you can't even get around that. Blast should be 6-inch blast templates. Paul, go away.
Get out of here with that template bullshit.
Last thing
Throw
I need
that
is
right
someone
in the
flipping
fucking bin.
Blast
templates
should
on
work
my
like it
table
used to, where
again.
you have like the blast template and you can chain the ordnance off of each other.
Yeah,
So you can
flip
like
'em,
daisy
flip 'em,
chain.
flip 'em.
Yeah, you just flipping them, so you could like use your like 12d3 thud gun shots to like chain over to like snipe at a character in a unit 4 inches away that was invisible.
Single unit activation takes 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Just I'll still not clock out. It'll be fine.
I don't think we have any other questions chilling in chat.
No,
so I
there
think
is
that's
nothing
actually
more
it.
from chat that I saw. There was nothing more from Discord. We did get a here's my cat paying chat from Davlos. So thank you very much, Davlos.
Yeah, here are your more pets, Davlos. There you go.
Yeah, that's all I've got. I'm really looking forward to my tournament this weekend. I'm playing Thousand Suns. I'm running Kairos Fate Weaver and Magnus because I like the model, and I could not put together 2,000 points of Thousand Suns without running 400 points of Demons. So we're going to see just how scuffed it can be. I'm looking forward to shooting Big Bird at people. Jeremy, anything for you this weekend?
No, I don't have anything until October 7th.
Nice.
Fair. Yeah, because you're not making LGT this year, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately.
And then Nathan, anything for you? You got an RGT this weekend?
I might have an RTT on Sunday. We'll see how that goes. I might bring Tyranids. I might bring Eldar. I don't know. We'll see how things go. Life is an ever-changing.
Is it a Crusade
box
RTT? If
wars.
it's not, you shouldn't play Eldar.
No, it's a regular RTT.
Okay, then you shouldn't play Eldar. You should
I
not
should-
play Eldar.
I'll bring Tyranids then. I'll paint monsters. Fine, Innes.
Yeah. No, be part of the problem.
No, be part of the solution.
I'm gonna bring.
Don't-
I'll bring triple Wraith Knight then. Just 3 Wraith Knights. No points for anything else.
You'd have 500 points for something else.
I
That's
know,
the
I would
disgusting
still-
part.
I would still have 500 points for characters and stuff.
I don't know what a super sticker is, but thank you, Dave, for sending one.
I think it's in the actual YouTube chat, which we never look at.
That's true. We
Entirely
just get our
possibly.
YouTube chat via StreamYard.
I can look at it. I have it open because I went on it for the link. He sent a dog with love hearts. It's very cute. Thank you, Dave. for the sticker.
Adorable.
Oh, that
Thank
is very
you.
adorable. Thank you, Dave.
All right, guys. I think that is going to do it for us because we are degenerating. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to us. Please do check out all the various things that we mentioned earlier. So that's red-dragon.ca, the Etsy shop for Saltar Games, although they are on a break at the moment, the website, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/statcheck, the Patreon at patreon.com/statcheck, and coaching at stat-check.com/coaching. All of our various things, articles, and all that sort of thing are on there on the website. Please do check it out. We really appreciate everything you guys do. We'll be back next week, fingers crossed, at last, for Anthony's WTC recap. And we will, if we can't get Ben on the show, I'll try and get some bonus content recorded with him because I think that'd be a good thing to do. At any rate, everybody have a great weekend. Good luck at any tournaments you're at. I do hope you all smash it, and everybody pray for Balance Data Slate. It's coming. It's coming. Like I think it's gonna be a good one. I got a good feeling about this one. I think so. And that's just me projecting my desperate need for 40k to be playable. But
we keep hoping. We keep dreaming. One day,
I have
maybe.
4 tournaments in October. 2 of them are team tournaments. This game better be fun by then.
I'm coming to the States twice in November. Like the game has to be playable by then, or I'm gonna be very sad.
Let's.
All right, everybody.
We're
gonna wrap the show up.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.